Let me tell you the tale of how two lovers would be connected together forever. Our story starts with a knock at the door one early morning and a trip to the police station. You see, George was half expecting this knock, so he said very little on the drive. He knew exactly what this was about. You see, George was a mean drunk, and he had one too many when he broke into his girlfriend Yardley's dorm room a few hours ago. And by girlfriend, I mean his ex-girlfriend, according to her, but not according to him. George's family was rich, like really rich. I'm talking yacht clubs, golf every weekend, having servants rich. And George, he was an heir to this fortune of richness. This goes hand in hand with never being told no, always getting what he wanted, and never getting into trouble. But don't get me wrong, George was a hard worker, he made excellent grades, and he was an amazing athlete. When it came to lacrosse, he led his team to many victories. In fact, this is how he met Yardley. She too was an athlete and an amazing lacrosse player. She was also extremely talented, beautiful, and funny, and she was sure to catch the eye of George, and that's exactly what she did. And like is often the case, things were good. Things were really, really good, but it was just a matter of time before she would begin to see his jealous side, his love for drinking, and then the abusive nature when he did. George's own friends had to pull him off of her a couple of times before when he found himself in the middle of a drunken fit of rage. So yeah, it was just a matter of time before Yardley ended things. But this didn't really bother him though, because when it came to George, nothing is ever really over until he says it is. But when he found out that Yardley had stayed the night with one of his teammates, he saw red. And this is when he decided to give her a little visit at midnight. According to George, as he sat before the detective, he might have gotten a little handsy with her, and maybe she got a bloody nose. But if you think about it, it's really her fault because after all, he just wanted to talk. Oh, and that knot on her head, that's because she had the audacity to tell him to leave when, after all, he just wanted to work things out. And as for her laptop, he didn't steal that from her because of all the threatening emails he sent to her. The only reason he took that is because when he was leaving, he said, "If you want this back, you'll have to come talk to me." So as poor George sat there thinking about the paper that was due later that day, the detective continued to question him. She asked about the bloody nose and the knot that was on her head, the bruise that was across her cheek and the bruises on her arms, and the giant hole that was in her bedroom door that he made when he kicked his way in. Yes, he knew he was in trouble, probably going to be late to class and might even get benched a game for his bad behavior. He might even get a lot of heat from his friends, and I think that was the worst part. He knew they were going to say something to him. So as he sat there thinking, and after all the questions were answered in a very matter-of-fact explanation, the room grew quiet. A hard stare fell onto George, and then the silence was broken. "She's dead. You killed her, George." And then more silence. But soon moans and cries filled the room as soon as the shock wore off. Denial after denial, and his wailing of "I didn't do it, she was fine when I left," just continued to repeat. George wasn't trying to convince the detective of his innocence. He was truly in denial of what he did. And among the last words that he would whisper as he sat in the room by himself, shackled in cuffs, was "that poor girl, that poor, poor girl." And with all of his money, and all of his family's power, and all of his talent, even with the red carpet that would lead to his future, George could do nothing. He was sentenced 23 years in the Augusta Correctional Center.